With a lot of factory games, there usually is like a set path of things you want to automate. So usually I'm just following that path, and you can roleplay along with it. For me though, my roleplay is absolute domination of the environment. Everything's smog, nuclear waste everywhere, power plants galore, oil, mine. That's how I like to play.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Tell Me About, the show where I've got questions, and thankfully, I know people who have the answers. Now, I'll admit, I am consistently late on most things, and when it comes to today's episode, yeah, I did it again. And for a while, I've seen these base building optimization survival factory games. Things like Factorio, Satisfactory, Little Rocket Lab, Automation Empire, Foundry, Captain of Industry. I looked at them and they looked complicated and way too in-depth, and I was lost when trying to follow them. Then I decided to give them a shot. And while playing them, you know that scene with Danny DeVito where he's like, I get it. That's how I felt. And to help me explain that and maybe guide me into this world, I've brought an assembly line guru, dare I say great guy, Kibitz. Welcome to the show.
Hello everyone, I'm Kibitz. Thanks for having me. Glad you got interested in the factory game space, buddy. It's a whole whack of fun.
Yeah, I was not sure based on screenshots and videos. It looks very complicated at first glance, and I did not realize when I got into it how much I would enjoy.
Yeah, a lot of people are really intimidated because you see all the numbers, and then I bring up spreadsheets, at least in my videos, or like you see like a screenshot of Factorio, it's just like, this is insane. This is too overwhelming. But when you get started, you start getting the feel for it, you learn some of the controls, and then dangerous, takes you away.
What would you call these games? Because when I look at them, I don't know definitionally what they are. I just think of Satisfactory or Factorio as like the template, but I don't know what they are. In my mind, I'm like, okay, well, you're building a base kinda, and you're optimizing things. There's a lot of, various parts that go into creating something on an assembly line, but it's also, if you don't get it to work, it crashes and it's kind of survivally. I don't know how you would describe these games.
I'll level with you. I'm working on an answer as well, but when most people ask me, hey, what kind of stuff do? I say strategy simulation games. It kind of encompasses a lot of it.
Sure. I'm glad you are equally lost on how truly to define this, because it kind of defies definition, really. You're making a factory, but you're doing more than that. And again, at first look, while watching it, you're like, what the hell? How is this enjoyable? I don't understand this. But when you're in it, you hit this weird flow state, and suddenly you just get it. And I there are very few times I've truly had that moment while playing a game. And usually it's a game that is very complicated and seems insane. And then suddenly you're like, oh, no, this isn't. This is actually really fun.
Yeah, I like to equate it a bit to Lego. Like if you're building with Lego, it's like, you open the box, there's maybe 10,000 pieces, but you're like, let's go! Because you get an instruction booklet, and you can follow along, and then you get into the zone of like, I get this, I get that, I see where this is coming together, and you see the progression going, and it just motivates you to play more, and then suddenly it's been 8 hours, and you're like, I need to wake up in 2.
Yeah, it definitely has that, the same thing kind of like a Civilization or a 4X game has, where it's similar to the one more turn thing, except with this, it's seeing the matrix code of the factory or assembly lines or processing coming together, and you're like, oh, if I could keep going, I could do this. It could just run itself. And I just sit back and watch it happen, and there's something about that where the hours fly by.
Oh my gosh, yeah, especially when you get things to do it by itself, because you know how it was like when you first start the game. It's like, oh my gosh, I have to get iron, I have to make plates, I have to make concrete, I have to make all these little low-level things. But then 6 hours later, you're like, wow, I have a whole box full of those things that took me forever, and now I'm working on like all this other stuff, and it's a really, really good self-reinforcing cycle.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And also, while you are very good at them, you also are very good at explaining and showing them off, which is essentially what your channel is. It's a ton of really great videos that people clearly love. How did you get started in that?
Oh man, it started a long time ago. I've always kind of been a numbers guy. Like, I wanted to be an accountant, but, things happen and suddenly 10 years later I'm doing this. But I like numbers, I like systems, and I was first introduced to these kinds of games, actually, through Minecraft. Minecraft mods, like Feed the Beast and others, and Tekkit. Oh my gosh. And then when there's a game called Satisfactory that was releasing in 2019, I was like, oh my gosh. This is like all the Minecraft mods I ever wanted to play, but in like a dedicated game. And I knew, it's like, this is it. I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm gonna love this. And it's been pretty good.
So in Minecraft, were you one of the people that was messing with like making the different tracks and making things automate and trying to make all that happen, while others like me were like, I built a house. That's cool.
Oh yeah, I was absolutely downloading all the mods, automating stuff, auto miners, setting up like quarries, all the modded stuff. And just, I like big plans too. So I'd always try and make like this crazy automated mining system and then automate it to transport stuff to my project areas. And yeah, I love these kinds of things.
Is there a specific thing that interests you that is why you're hooked on this?
Yes, I love the feeling of progress. With a lot of different games, like there's leveling systems, you level up or you get new skills, you grow a little bit stronger. But with factory games and a lot of or even Minecraft, you collect all the resources and you keep building on top of what you've already done. And you can visually see the progress you keep making. It's really, really rewarding and motivating. It's like, wow, I remember 200 hours ago, I did X and Y and now we're here. And having like the progress reinforce itself and build up to something bigger. I really like that kind of stuff.
Is it a stressor to see the amount of like, I guess trial and error is the best way to explain it when you first learn, or it's like, all right, well, in order to make this box, I need 800 iron, right? Does that ever feel overwhelming to you, or is that just kind of what you're into? That's what you like.
When I'm learning a new game, like a new factory game, learning the controls and how it like actually works, yeah, it can definitely be overwhelming. It takes a little bit of activation energy to like figure out the basics, figure out the controls, and then make those first couple steps. But once you get like the first thing automated and you see, oh, this is how the process goes, and you're able to like reiterate on that and make it expand, it gets a lot better. But yeah, definitely a lot of activation energy getting into it.
For someone watching right now who has no idea or is just slightly interested, what would be sort of your first best practices, best steps in order to jump in and experience any of these games?
Definitely, number one thing is don't be afraid to automate things. There's a lot of these factory games have like a crafting system just to get you started, but a lot of people just are like, I don't want to build this whole automated system. But just leaning into the automation and seeing that like work for you is really, really rewarding and really like reinforces what these factory games are all about.
So my options are either I keep crafting or I just decide to automate it all. And eventually any sane person's going to be like, yeah, no, I'll just automate.
People get there eventually, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if that's kind of like a live and learn situation, or if it's something that only dum-dums like me figure out. Like, was that sort of your process when you first started doing this?
Oh my gosh, with every factory game I pick up, it's the same thing. I'm like, oh, I only need 5 things. And then I always remember, no, the game is trying to guide me to automate this thing. Let's get it automated. Let's tear some stuff down. Let's rebuild a proper system. Let's get her set up so I can build upon the structure.
Yeah, it's fascinating because that's when, again, it clicks. There's like a weird, I get it moment. And from that point on, everything is exactly like you were saying. You're not building the item, you're building the things to continually build that item as it becomes more and more and more complicated.
Setting the foundation of like a pyramid to build bricks on top of, yeah.
When you get to that point, when it becomes really complicated and suddenly you have stuff going everywhere and you scroll out and it's this massive factory floor of all these things, how do you manage that in a way that doesn't drive you crazy?
Well, unfortunately, I kind of went crazy. I'm a big spreadsheet guy. I like numbers and all this. It's very, very, very overkill. But I find it's fun to like build the biggest pyramid. All that kind of jazz. I really find it fun to have like a pen and paper to follow along when you're playing the game. Just write down what your last thing was. It's like, I was here and there. And having like the pen and paper along with the factory game, it just adds to the experience. You really feel like you're working on something important and big, and it's cool. I like it a lot.
So you're drafting plans when you play.
Oh, for the stuff that I'm doing? Oh yeah. If some things go wrong, it could be really, really bad.
And you can see that in your videos, they look complicated.
Well, with this game I play a lot, Satisfactory, I've played through it a couple times now, and now the game is like fully released, I'm really stretching the bounds of what's possible in the game, and when you do that, it gets a little finicky and a little freaky, especially when you get nuclear waste involved.
Whoa. What do you mean?
Well, in Satisfactory, one of the processes is you can make uranium fuel rods. The uranium fuel rods, when they burn, make uranium waste. But you can't delete that. It's indestructible and highly radioactive. So you want another system that will eat that uranium waste, plutonium fuel rods, and then with the plutonium fuel rods, you can either sink those, use them for power, or develop it even further. The main thing is, all these steps need to work together, or else you're gonna end up with nuclear waste everywhere, and it's gonna be like,
You think about any of the city building games where, if you have some sort of waste area, that does lead to problems with everything else around it. Is that the same case here, where if you just have a bunch of nuclear waste, it's gonna cause problems in the factory?
If it backs up in the proper factory system and isn't stored somewhere, yeah, because the nuclear waste is coming from power plants, and you need the power from the power plants to run all your factories. So if the waste builds up and stops the power plants, you don't have the power to process the waste, and it's a bit of a bad feedback loop there, but it's also a lot of fun.
And with that, it just made me think about the idea of location planning. I know when I was talking with City Planner Plays about building a city, it was kind of like, okay, what city are you building? Like, who first lived here? What was the river used for? Like, that kind of thing. And there was a thought of roleplay basically going into it. And with this, and any sort of factory game, in my mind, it was roughly the same thing as a city building game, which was, I'm building a factory, and I'm gonna do what it tells me to do. But I wonder, based on what you're saying, if maybe having some sort of grand vision at the beginning, like, okay, well, originally we started as a factory that just makes quilts, but now we're making sails, and eventually, and it just keeps ballooning. Is that kind of the approach, or is it just, I do what makes me happy?
With a lot of factory games, there usually is like a set path of things you want to automate. So usually I'm just following that path, and you can roleplay along with it. For me though, my roleplay is absolute domination of the environment. Everything's smog, nuclear waste everywhere, power plants galore, oil, mine. That's how I like to play.
Right, so Capitalism Simulator 101, you're full invested, you're like smokestacks everywhere. Is that then kind of moving into that space of where you plan in advance? Because I imagine just in the limited time that I've played these games, it's already a stressor to see, okay, well, I want straight lines, and I want things to look beautiful and work well and be like how I imagine a computer should look like on the inside when the cables are managed very well, rather than how it actually looks if you were to look inside my computer right now. And I'm always just like, I want it to be perfect. But I wonder, is that a possibility, or should I just get over that and be like, look, it'll never be perfect. You're always going to be adjusting, and by the end, it's going to be a maze of cogs and assembly lines.
I think perfection can sometimes be the enemy of good. It's good just to have fun with the process. If it gets a little messy in some areas, you can just put it in a box and it doesn't exist. Or I feel like with city games or systems games, whatever, it's really good to not get so afraid of redoing things, like tearing down an old system and rebuilding it, because you learn so much as you go and build new systems. Like, oh, I can do things this way, I can do things that way. And especially with games like Satisfactory, it has so many nice tools and quality of life features where it's easy to rip out something, add in a new blueprint, rebuild it way more optimized, and that's okay.
Would you recommend Satisfactory as like the starting point, or is there another, because I know you mentioned Minecraft as a start, is there another game that's sort of, I don't want to say baby's first factory game, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just easy enough to jump into, and it makes you get it so that then you can try the harder things.
I would say Satisfactory is really, really well suited for that. Pretty much the process it's really friendly. There's lots of tutorial and tips, but it goes super in depth. So if you do get into it, you have all the options for you later on to expand your knowledge.
And what would you say some of those, further deep diving, because I know you mentioned various wastes and things, like how deep does that go? Where do you end up in that game? Because it sounds like you can kind of go anywhere, really.
Well, the whole goal in Satisfactory is the Save the Day program, where an AI is telling you that you have to save Earth and you have to make all these thingamajiggers to send up a space elevator. So that's really the big goal. But what's happening over like the course of the game is you kind of start thinking differently, wherein, you're like system-based with a lot of this stuff, where it's like you need a system to build X, a system to build Y, and then fulfill like the end target goals. So it's not so much I need iron plates, it's more like I need a system that brings these items together to help me finish this final part or something like that.
It's weird to say this, but it seems like a game like Satisfactory or any of the other games that have sort of a this is what this game is may in fact be more intuitive than Minecraft, which is kind of figure it out yourself.
Yes, there is at least some kind of guide rails. With Minecraft, it's like you plopped in a world, there's a tree, you can punch it, you can go in whatever direction. With factory games, there usually is a big overarching goal. You can expand your systems very, very, very wide. Like specifically in Factorio, oh my gosh. Beating the game is like the beginning of the game because you can go absolutely nuts with that.
Yeah, and does this love of building and creating translate into anything else in your life? Are you obsessed with something else that is in the same vein, but just not factory stuff?
Yes. The underlying thing with a lot of the games I play is I really, really, really like systems. I think systems are really neat. Like a plan is simply a system to reach like a goal. Factory games, you're building different systems to automate certain things, whatnot. Or even back when I was looking into being an accountant, it's just the systems of organizing transactions and stuff like that. It's like, that's really cool. And it took a little while for me to have it click like, oh, all of these things are systems and logistics. And it's just so neat. You can apply it to the games, your own life, the world. It's really, really, really cool when you like dive into some of these places.
Cool. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense to, have factory simulation and accounting kind of like right here. It all sort of checks out, really.
Yeah.
So could you describe first couple hours experience leading into mid-game, leading into late game, and what that kind of looks like?
So you usually land on some planet. There's resources all around you, and you're kind of just figuring out what kind of tools and what kind of starter processes there are. You pick up a piece of iron, you need to smelt that piece of iron, and then there's usually like a constructor type thing to turn that iron into something else. So a lot of the early game is figuring out those kinds of basics, and then beside that is power. Most factory games usually are bottlenecked by power, because you build and build and build and build, and then suddenly you need more and more and more power. Usually you're figuring out the systems and then figuring out the power and hopefully automating power, like setting up a wind turbine, automating like a coal burner, or something along those lines. At the next stage, once you figure out those kinds of systems, you have like a base level understanding, then you expand it out. Big. You get the logistics in. Oh, my factory's grown too big. I need to send up a train to bring more items in because my factory is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I'm building more and more and more power. Everything expands. Everything gets more crazy. And then you run out of power again. And it's like, oh, that little coal thing didn't really work out too well. Everything's crashing. In Satisfactory, there's a horrifying noise, everybody's nightmare. And at that point, it's like, oh, what do I do now? My little coal burner didn't work. And that's where you entered kind of the late game. We have to start burning oil, learning about complicated like nuclear setups and things of that nature. And from that point on, just a lot more complexity. Once you get the power figured out, you usually beat the game pretty quick in the late game. But then past the late game, you can take the game to your heart's content for the most part. or until the game engine collapses.
Whoa, so that is the thing that happens, is you just have so much going on, the game can't handle it?
If you're using literally every resource in like the entire world, yeah, game engines don't really like that too much. For most factory games, though, they're very, very optimized. Satisfactory, amazingly optimized. I can't even believe how, like, I started the game in early access, and from there to where it is now, unbelievably optimized. Factorio as well, incredible game. And there's another called Dyson Sphere program. It absolutely phenomenal. That game, I don't think you could break it, actually. They do things a lot differently in that game.
I've never heard of that one. What is that game?
It's what you think. In Dyson Sphere program, you're a mech, you land on a planet, and your goal is to make as much power as possible. So, the goal ends up being to build a Dyson Sphere. With multiple rings, and you can make them look absolutely stunning. You can build a Dyson Sphere around a black hole if you want. Is it super effective? No. Is it cool? Yeah. And it takes a lot of the factory mechanics and takes it galactic, where you can copy and paste a blueprint of a whole planet and just like, this planet, click, that's mine now. And the whole thing gets built by drones and encased in machinery. It's an absolutely incredible game. Beautiful as well.
What is the gameplay loop on that? Because it seems like you said you land on a planet.
Yes.
So now I have to go from planetary surface to galactic, and spoilers for humanity, we haven't even done that yet, and we've been around a while. So I'm trying to figure out how long is a gameplay loop in something like that?
It's about the same as most other factory games. The big deal is the planet, pretty small, limited resources, and eventually it's mostly just a tutorial to help you launch off the planet. You can literally just fly up and then you're in space. There's a planet on your horizon, you go there. But you land there, gather its resources, build like interplanetary trade in like your solar system, and then you get more and more advanced tech, and then you expand to other solar systems.
That sounds fascinating. So again, going back to the very beginning where I was like, I'm still not really sure how to define these games. This is another one of those, I'm not really sure how to define that game, because it has a little bit of everything in it. And this one, instead of, you were saying, build a space elevator, or, build X, Y, or Z, this one is power. It's focusing entirely on the generation of power, which the other games do have, but it's not the focus.
No. Goal of Dyson Sphere is definitely power, and as many Dyson Spheres as you can, as much automation as you can, until you run the entire galaxy out of stuff.
So in that case, I imagine because it's on a planetary or universal scale, they're not really concerned about, the limitations of scarcity. But in other games, I imagine it's more on the forefront. Like, yeah, sure, the planet can run out of something, but if you're talking about, like, just a grid of where you can operate, eventually you'll run out of things. How do you manage that in a way that doesn't really upset you? Because I'll watch, like, okay, I'm losing, oh god, the coal's almost gone, I don't know what to do right now, because I gotta change literally everything I'm doing because that one supply has run out.
It depends. With some games, it's kind of fun if resources run out, because then you have to really think about like modular systems. Like you have the power system, it's all disconnected from the ore nodes, and then you just set up the minings. Like I'm thinking Factorio right now, where if you run out of the coal, it's like, okay, then you have to set up a longer belt or maybe a train, what have you. In a game like Satisfactory, all the nodes are infinite, but there's a limited amount of nodes, so there's a limited amount of resources total on the planet. And then Dyson Sphere is kind of a mix between where you can set either the resource scarcity to be very, very scarce, like you're gonna have to jump from planet to planet to planet to beat the game, or unlimited, and you just go absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and in the building process of that, when things start to collapse, you start to run out of things, how do you manage the reconstruction, I guess is the best word?
A lot of factory games have blueprint systems. So you can build like a factory setup, then you effectively can copy and can paste it in other places. So when you're setting up your first factory on your first planet or first starting area, copying that and then placing it into like different situations helps with the expansion. Or if an area runs out of resources, then it just becomes constructor space where you build more machines.
Gotcha. Okay, so no matter what, you're using every inch of space you have, you're just using it in different ways.
Yes.
And with all of that put together, then when it comes down to the process of, all right, we're starting at the from A to B to C. We're starting in A, and we're building small things, and we have our assembly line, or we have the machines creating things, and it's automated. When we hit B, and now we're really in it, do you change, reset, tear down the factory? Or like you were saying, do you just keep adding and then blueprinting over and over again? How do you go through the process of that A to B to C in a way that is, kind of like a veteran of the space?
Personally, I set up like the first early stage things as temporary. I just try and get to the next stage where I can have better equipment, because as you progress through like the stages of the game, you get better and better stuff, and your limitations expand. Because now, I can just build it way better. Or even in games like City Skylines as well. It's like, all right, I know I can unlock better roads, better highways, stuff like that later on. So I'll make things work for now, and then if an asteroid hits the city and I have to rebuild, happens.
Yeah, I guess that's a very wise way of looking at it, because things happen, and you will have changes and problems and things that you need to adjust to. My biggest downfall is pre-planning, thinking somehow I will avoid all of that. Like, if I just plan enough, I can avoid it, which it sounds like that's impossible.
You can plan as much as you want, but yeah, leaving some flexibility in that plan is a good idea, because something will go wrong somewhere. It's just you don't know where, and that's half the surprise. So having some wiggle room helps out a lot.
Sure, yeah. I know you mentioned City Skylines. It does seem like there's some, Venn diagram-ish crossover between a city building game and a factory building game. Would you say there's any other games that sort of, if you're a fan of this, you might enjoy these?
Whenever there's like a good system involved, like Roller Coaster Tycoon, I really like how you overlay systems. Like, you need like the food areas in one area. You need the pass to connect up to your most profitable rides. Tycoon type games, management type games, like 2 Point Hospital or Museum, those types of things are really, really fun, because everything is just overlaid systems. Like with the city, you have your road grid, then you have your bike grid on top of that, you have your highway grid, and you build and build and iterate, and it expands. And you can see where you started, and you can see where you're at, and again, that progress is really, really rewarding.
Yeah, I'm so curious, because you mentioned Minecraft, you mentioned accounting. Where did this has it always been there? Where did this come from? Because it seems so very specifically targeted to your interests, these games. And I'm curious where those interests came from.
Came out of a cereal box. Roller Coaster Tycoon 1. Oh my gosh. It woke me up to this whole world. It has little spreadsheets in that game, and I was like, oh, this is kind of neat. What's a loan? Little kid me. What if I take all of the loan? Oh, I have to pay it back. But oh, I can build my park up faster. Start layering in these systems. Oh, this thing sells for a little bit more, a little bit less. That's what interested me in like the financial side of systems, and that's accounting. But then with Minecraft, in like the Minecraft mods and such, then I realized, oh, industry, kind of neat. Building more, collecting resources, smog, pollution, a lot of fun.
It's fascinating to me, because it definitely tells you about personality types. You saw loans, you saw debt, and said, okay, I can work with this, I can learn about this. I saw loans and debt, was like, you mean I owe them more money? Well, this seems like a scam. I hate this is stupid. And I was like, I would take out all the money I could, spend it immediately, and be like, look at my beautiful, what do you mean I'm broke? Right?
But look, I'm not going to say I haven't done that a couple times too. It's like, oh, whoopsies, I'm bankrupt. What do you mean?
It's just fascinating. Yeah, it's fascinating to see your interest in this, because it comes from a place that I absolutely was never at. But it's so obvious that it has led you to these games and this as a career, doing videos on these. It's fascinating.
Tell me about it. Half my family still doesn't understand. It's like, what kind of games, what do you do on YouTube? It's like, yeah, strategy management, systems games, stuff like that. And they're like, okay, Gotcha. Yeah, it's kind of confusing.
Yeah, so what do people, when they message you or ask you questions in videos, what are they asking you? Like, what are the things you find yourself explaining over and over again, or the things that you think are really fun to explain to people who have questions about these games?
The number one question I always get with every Factory game, in the past and for the rest of time, will be motivation. A lot of people, as I was describing like the stages in the game, there's the early game, you kind of make it work, you get to the fuel stage, and then you can really expand from there. But a lot of people get really overwhelmed by just all the different choices, how much of X should I build, how much of Y should I build, all these sorts of things. And at that stage, it's really good to just give yourself an arbitrary goal. It doesn't need to be anything big or specific, it could just be done. It's like, say for Minecraft, you have all of your good stuff, let's get 64 diamonds. Or in Satisfactory, it's like, I've built a giant fuel power plant, let's make it big enough to make 50,000 megawatts. Then go from there, just little iterative goals to work towards. And writing things down helps a lot as well, because say you go on a bender and you play, I don't know, a Factory game for 12 hours straight. Not like I would ever do such a thing. When you revisit the game, sometimes it can be confusing because you're like, where did I leave off? What's going on here? Too much to pick up again. So having things written down or like a little note like, you were here, buddy. Just pick up from there. It'll be fine. It can help a ton.
Yeah, that is one of my biggest problems as well. The idea of, and it's almost every game, where I will put in so many hours, take a break, come back and be like, where the hell did I leave off? And just decide to restart. Do you ever just say, screw it, I'm done, I'm going to restart and just do it over?
The vast majority of people do that. They restart. I don't like restarting. I like building up my progress and stuff. Whenever I feel like in an early game, like I want to restart, instead I'm like, I'll just delete everything that I've built. So at least I'll have like a storage cache of like resources, and then I'll just rebuild everything from there. And then I don't have to like reiterate, go through all the tutorials, all that kind of jazz.
So is it because you're not a fan of the early game, or you have already committed so much time to what you've done that you don't want to squander that time?
I'm just mostly not a fan of like early game stuff. I want the big systems. I want the big nuclear power plants. I want to pave the world. I want it all. I don't want to be fiddling and peasant trotting around with my boots on the dirt, collecting grass and leaves like a Neanderthal. I want nuclear power.
It's so funny, because I'm the exact opposite. I'm like, that late game stuff, there's so much, it's too complicated. Give me 3 guys named Ugg, and we're going to just hammer some metal, and that makes perfect sense to me. And I love, even in, like classic Civ games, early game stuff, when it's like 4000 BC, I'm like, this is where I thrive. I got 4 units to choose from, and I'm going to dominate the world before these assholes can get guns. And that's where I'm at. But the minute it becomes complicated, I'm like, I sue for peace with everyone. Let us bask together in the glory of technology. And they're like, you suck, dude, we're invading. I'm like, what if you don't? They're like, nope, we're invading. I'm like, cool. And that's the same thing with city building. It's the same thing with, now I'm getting into the Factory games. I'm like, I get the early. Later, so much is happening that I'm just overwhelmed by it. And if it starts to collapse, I'm like, I guess I'll restart.
Yeah, it is something to get over, because it can be like really, really scary and stressful when, oh my gosh, all the plans didn't work out. There's a big like chaotic thing happening. But it's a game. It's like, oh no, 2 Lego pieces didn't fit together. That's just go down the list, see where it is. And also, there's no time limit. Usually in most of the games, and there's no rush. Just take it as like a zen little project. Like building a train set or a Lego set, whatever. If it is super broken, rip out like half the system. It's like, okay, I tried this, I learned something new, and now I can build it even better. Or just lower the scope down. Like a lot of people, I do things at like huge scales, and a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, how do you do all this? This is crazy. I can't hardly make like X parts per minute. And I'm like, well, playing this game is kind of my job, so I have a little bit more time than most people. And I got a lot of spreadsheets and stuff too, so you don't have to do like the absolute most extreme thing in the world. Like if you can get like a system automated, less than like a part a minute, you've automated it. That's huge. You run off, you do some other thing, you come back, oh, there's like 50 iron plates here. Awesome. And then you get that kind of still the feeling of accomplishment from that.
I don't want this to sound insulting to factory games, but there is kind of like, the clicker games, like the cookie clickers and all that stuff, where eventually you hit a point where you don't have to click anymore, and it kind of does it for you. And if you just leave the room, you come back and it's like, I'm wealthy in clicks. It feels the same way.
Yeah, it can be that way. And that's, part of it, really. Because every single item, your goal is to not have to work on it anymore. And then you just collect and collect and collect all these different types of resources. So yes, it is kind of like that. But every little clicking thing that requires like an item, like an iron plate, piece of concrete, what have you, it's its own little puzzle you have to work out to automate. And then, if you don't want to just leave your game running overnight, you can figure out like ways to make it even better and more optimized, look at some of the numbers, figure out how to boost like the power system so you can expand on it more, and these sorts of things.
Yeah, it eventually becomes sort of I don't want to make one widget every minute. Can I do 2 widgets every minute?
Exactly.
And then you start thinking on that level, and suddenly you're like, oh my God, I am full on in this. And yeah, that's when you start to see that matrix code of, hold on, if I tweak this and this thing, maybe, just maybe, I can have 3 widgets every minute. And
Woo!
Suddenly, now you're really in it. And it feels good. I will admit, it really feels good to crack that code.
Oh yeah. Every little thing is like a little puzzle, little compounded thing where you have to get the resources in, you have to figure out the types of machines. As like the tech layers get more advanced, the puzzles get a little bit more intricate. There's byproducts like nuclear waste, or maybe you have to get rid of excess water in a system. Stuff like this to complicate it a little bit. It's really, really, really rewarding. Almost like Sudoku puzzles, if you've played those before.
Yes, I was just about to say, if you take away the factory part of it and just think of it as a puzzle, it has the exact same vibe as if you're sitting around with your family doing a puzzle and you're putting the pieces in, and at some point it all clicks for everyone, whether you did the border or whatever the case, and you're like, now we just fill in the rest. Like, we get it now, and everyone just slamming pieces down and like, oh, look at this. It has that exact vibe, except it's, assembly lines and crafting and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that one puzzle you built as like a group, well, that is now a new piece for an even grander puzzle. And then you have to figure that out one piece at a time.
Yes, it's weird that this is semi-topical, but like 2 days ago, I saw a photo online from a wedding where they had each table do a Lego puzzle, but then the Lego puzzle fit into a bigger puzzle that was their photo of them at the wedding.
I saw that exact same thing, actually.
And I was like, that's so cute.
Yeah, every table like worked on its own little part of it, and then they all put it together. Yeah.
It's so good to talk to you about this, because you basically reaffirmed everything I thought when I got into it, which was at first seemed too much, seemed insane, seemed like a lot. But while playing, it's really just puzzle solving.
Yes.
And you're doing it over and over and bigger and bigger. And as you crack the puzzles and you figure out what to do, you get those kind of like moments of clarity and sort of the endorphin rush of like, yes, I get this. And it feels really good to play in a way that I was not expecting.
Yeah, it is a very different kind of experience. Like, the factories get very, very complicated, and technically speaking, it is kind of like work, but it gives you the sense of accomplishment. I'm trying to think of like a forklift simulator and stuff like that, where it's literally a job, but people play it for fun. With factories, it can seem like a lot of work, but it is very relaxing once you figure it out and you're just automating the systems. It's like, all right, let's make this bigger and bigger and bigger. Then you turn it on and it's just like, whew, I've done good today.
Yeah, it is kind of like the perfect podcast game.
100%, man. Yes.
Yeah, it's just you put something on in the background and you just go and you just zone out, you chill. It's fascinating that it seems chaotic and you'd be stressed the entire time, but in reality, it is a relaxation simulator, which is very weird. I don't know how to best to describe that, but that's kind of what it is.
You've nailed it, buddy. That is exactly how I see it too. And you're right, it is a podcast game. That's my whole goal with like playing factory games, partly why I love them. I just get in a nice zone with that. I put in my podcast or audiobook, and that's just my Monday to Friday. It is the best. It's the best. I love it.
So before we wrap up here, what would you say to, sort of as a last thing to anyone who's right on the edge, who wants to give it a shot, but is still a little like, okay, where do I start? What game should I pick? Does it matter? There's so many options, and I don't want to be overwhelmed. Like, what would you say to people?
I'd really recommend Satisfactory. I think it has a really, really good onboarding process to just factory games in general. It's bright, it's fun, it's clear, you can visually see everything. And on top of, besides the game, embrace it. It's going to take a little bit to figure out the controls, how like the belts and all that stuff work, and the numbers, and like systems games. Systems games are very different from first-person shooters or management, stuff like this. So take a moment, learn the controls, give it like 2-3 hours, and don't sit at the crafting bench for those 2-3 hours. Automate the stuff.
And your YouTube channel, which I believe is Imkibitz,
Yes.
it is filled with so many good, not just videos on it, but various guides and explanations on things. It's awesome. Please shout yourself out. Tell people what they can find over there. You have free reign right now.
Yeah. So again, I'm Kibitz. I play a lot of Satisfactory right now, but I'm also into a lot of strategy and simulation games like Foundry, City Skylines, and the like. I also stream on Twitch, same username, twitch.tv/I'mKibitz. I just stream on Fridays, casually doing the Satisfactory background work for my videos.
Cool. Very cool. Kibitz, thank you so much for coming on and talking with me about this. I loved this conversation. Thank you so much.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me on.